All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking NFL football, and it's down to the final four. We're in the conference championship game. There's only 4 teams left, 2 tickets to the Super Bowl left, and it is also Royal Rumble season. So the man who is trying to enter into the 2023 Royal Rumble as the 31st entrance, but they only let 30 guys in. My co-host, Fresh, how you doing?
Perhaps, and if I do, what would be like my walk-in song if I was a Royal Rumble? Like, what would play over loudspeakers? I have no idea, but I would come in with the thunder and throw a couple chairs and definitely make a scene.
Yeah, it's an over-the-top battle royal there, Fresh. I don't know. Leave it in the comment section. What would you make Fresh's theme song if he was a professional wrestler? I would love to hear what people think.
I would too.
All right, Fresh, let's get into it here. Let's start with this. NFL releases their finalists for the award season. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year. Let's just talk about this real fast here before we roll into our 2 conference championship game. Fresh, MVP seems like it always goes to the quarterback. I'm kind of going to stay with that. I'm going to probably give my MVP to the quarterback. But if I'm going to give my quarterback the MVP award, I'm going to give a different player for Offensive Player of the Year. I'm not going to choose a quarterback for that. I don't know about you, but that's just me here. So I'll go to you first. MVP of the year. Who you got?
I got to go with Patrick Mahomes. Touchdown passes, passing yards, number 1 in the league. Everyone thought that without Tyreek Hill, this offense was going to completely just fall apart. And Travis Kelce is a beast, and that really makes it help. But when you look at the running back situation, Jerick McKinnon stepping up, Pacheco playing, and then you bring in MVS, you bring in JJ Smith-Schuster, Juju Smith-Schuster. The way that he just kept the offense moving, and they kept getting better and better, and he is the focal point and the one that pushes that team down the road. Now, obviously, it looked like maybe they could do it without him when Henny played in that one drive, but it wasn't the same offense. That was one drive. Really, could that be consistent for a whole year? I don't think so. I think Mahomes is definitely the MVP.
Yeah, he's my leader as well. The other person the only reason I kind of would go with this guy because he's really, really kind of stepped up to. He also had 5 rushing touchdowns as well this year. Is Joe Burrow. I think that, the 2 quarterbacks that are playing in the AFC Championship game, one of those 2 guys probably deserve to be the MVP. I think that if you take Mahomes off of the Chiefs, if you take Burrow off of the Bengals, both of those 2 teams are drastically different teams. I don't even think they even sniffed the playoffs this year. I would lean towards Mahomes as well. I'm not going to reiterate the same things that you just said, but those would be my exact same reasons. He's the one who stirs the drink for the Chiefs. Since he's taken over that job a couple of years ago, he really has been the best quarterback in the entire NFL, year in and year out. Joe Burrow, to me, I feel like they've kind of made themselves 1A and 1B. I really like both these players. I can't wait to see the game this week. So I would say Mahomes is my leader as well, but Burrow is a very, very close second to me.
Yeah, I mean, Burrow has just shown it. I mean, they haven't lost since Halloween, which killed my fantasy team that week. So thanks a lot, Joe. But even the conversation having Josh Allen, he had initially started off well, but ever since the weather kind of turned, Josh Allen, that Bills offense, really have fallen off, and it was definitely evident the past few weeks. And I think that took him out of the race completely. And it's 2-horse race between Mahomes and Burrow at this point.
All right, Fresh. So let's stick to the offensive side of the football. Who's your offensive player of the year?
I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. I mean, the dude, if he had a better quarterback or a quarterback that actually trusted him to get the ball in a playoff game late, he would even be better. But I think that kid just does it all. He can run any kind of route in the route tree. You can put him any place. He's going to go up and make contested catches. He is going to be that man, and he's shown it. Every year he's gotten better and better and better. And I think even next year he's going to take it to a higher level. Justin Jefferson is just phenomenal.
We didn't talk about any of this before the start of this record here, folks. And Justin Jefferson is also my offensive player of the year. 128 receptions, 1,800 yards, only 8 touchdowns. The touchdowns do give me a second to pause, and then I take a look at someone like an A.J. Brown over there in Philadelphia. He would probably be my second pick as well. 88 catches. He's got 1,400 yards. So he's doing a lot more yardage with less catches there. 11 touchdowns on the year for him. Because as great as the Eagles have been, you take a look at what Jalen Hurts done. Jalen Hurts probably another guy that we should give some MVP candidacy to. But I think it's really been the difference maker between what Jalen Hurts had last year and then now they bring in A.J. Brown from Tennessee. A.J. Brown's really changed that team, really give them a different dynamic as a football team. He definitely deserves some consideration for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at what he's done. He's made Devonta Smith better. He's helped the running game. He's helped Jalen Hurts a lot. AJ Brown's definitely been phenomenal, and he's another really strong candidate there. And you can even see from Tennessee where they are definitely missing him in the offensive explosion he brings.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's see if we go 3 for 3 for matching each other here. Defensive Player of the Year.
And I think this one's probably the most contested because you can go multiple ways. Um, you can go stats, you can go impact. I'm going to go with Micah Parsons because his impact, putting him out either linebacker, edge, sometimes even play him inside, getting after the quarterback, causing disruption, being an intimidating force. He might not have the 19, 20 sack season that everyone wants to see on the stat sheet, but what he does across the field and being game planned against is rare in the league right now. And that's why I think he is that dude. The whole phrase is he is him or I am him or whatever that is. Whatever the phrase is, that's who Micah Parsons. He is a phenomenal freak of an athlete. And it's scary. I think if you've probably seen like the replays where he did the one arm bull rush like Reggie White, and I think Good Morning Football even put him up, paired him left to right with each other, and the exact moves of the body were almost identical to Reggie White's sack they had on Drew Bledsoe in the Super Bowl, where just with the right arm, completely just bowls the guy over, hops over him, and makes the play on the quarterback. And the funny thing is that he's actually like 60, 70 pounds lighter than Reggie White was at the time. And doing that, completely throwing a human being, a full man, to the side with one arm and getting the quarterback just shows you what kind of a force he is.
So this was a close one for me. I'm between two players here. One of them is more of a homer pick. The other one is, well, again, both of them are probably a homer pick. People will call me out for that. And I really feel it comes down to Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett. Both of them, you take a look. Nick Bosa, 18 and a half sacks this year, 19 tackles for a loss. Did it in 16 games, too. Myles Garrett, 16 sacks on the year, 18 tackles for a loss as well. Myles Garrett, 60 tackles total. Nick Bosa, 51 on the year. Both of them were huge nightmares for offensive coordinators all year. You have to kind of shift over a tight end or make sure that you bring in a running back to chip for both of those guys. Probably the nod's going to go to Nick Bosa. But me, if I'm going my homer pick, I'll take Myles Garrett there because I feel like it's weird for how great Myles Garrett is. He hasn't even really been considered for Defensive Player of the Year. I know one year he was like in the top 5, I think, maybe top 3. But it's really tough for me to see him not get that, at least being considered a finalist. I know the award's going to probably wind up going to Nick Bosa, but I would love to see Myles Garrett get more credit.
It's a great question there because I Nick Bosa was my number 2. But has Bosa officially passed his brother as the better brother?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I
And
go ahead.
I mean, I agree. Like he's number one. He stayed healthy. He's except for like last year he was a little banged up, but for the most part in his career he's been healthy and he's been making an impact the entire time.
Yeah, the question is, does T.J. Watt eventually pass his brother J.J.? Tough.
That's gonna be. I mean, defensive player of the year having a couple times, and that's gonna be tough for TJ.
Yeah, it really sucks when your brother is a really really good defensive player and you're a pretty good defensive player in your own right. And again, TJ gets the benefit of the doubt being in that Steelers system that you kind of plug and play a player and they're
Yeah,
automatically a great defender.
they've been plugging and playing since Greg Lloyd and Kevin Green back in the early '90s.
Yeah, still they wave stupid yellow towels. All right, whatever. We'll get on to that there. All right, Fresh. One last one before we get going into the playoff games this weekend. Coach of the year. Now, this is really a tough tough call because there's so many coaches out there that have done a lot of really great things. It can go almost anywhere with this one. So I'm curious to see who you say is coach of the year.
I've been actually debating this one all afternoon because there's like there's two coaches that are going to pop to the surface, and I think it's, in my opinion, Doug Peterson and Brian Daboll. Then you kind of look at the situations they're handed, the divisions they play in, and where the success and the growth that coach provided leadership at. I'm going to say right now, NFC East is a lot more difficult division than the AFC South. Like that's a hands down one. And for the talent pool, I think with the injury concerns and question marks the Giants had, Brian Daboll did a better job. And I know, hey, we're in Jacksonville. We really support the Jaguars. Doug Peterson is my number 2, but Brian Daboll should get Coach of the Year. He got Saquon Barkley to, number one, play at the highest level he's played at. He was lucky enough, I guess you could say, for him to be healthy. But most impressively, he took an offense outside of Barkley with a bunch of no-name players and Daniel Jones and turned them into a prolific offense the entire season and got better until obviously they played the Eagles in the playoffs. But they were able to put up double-digit win seasons in that division, getting themselves a playoff seed that they had locked up a couple weeks before the end of the year to go. Doing it under the radar, but upsetting teams and beating teams, physically beating teams. I think we all really took notice of the Giants when they went out to London and they beat the Packers. They came back on Green Bay, physically mauled them in the second half, and then boom, took off from there. And they were beating teams with regularity. Daniel Jones looked like a competent quarterback. Richie James, and a bunch of other guys were passing Darius Slayton and Kenny Golladay as legit receivers. They turned no-name players into legit playmakers. It's a kind of a thing where you took a core of a team and you had them believe in each other. You built a defense, you had players contribute, and you grew in confidence week over week in a division where you could have melted. They could have faded to the Eagles and the Giants. They could have minimized. They could have lost games to everyone else. The way they competed versus the Vikings and lost by 3 on Christmas Eve showed this team was truly built to make a run. The way that they ended up beating the Vikings in the playoffs showed that this team was really, truly built to make a run. No disclaimer to Doug Peterson, but that team was under 500. They were a 2-6 start, 2-7 start. Yes, they made a great surge down the road at the very end, and that's a true testament. But the Giants bolted straight out. Both their seasons ended the same week of the year, but the Giants just showed in a tougher league to really play harder and play tougher. I think I expected more from the Jaguars than the Giants, and seeing their success puts Daboll above. But both those coaches did great, but Brian Daboll should be Coach of the Year.
So this is really, really tough for me here, Fresh. I was a couple of different ways. I first thought about Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. I'm sure I butchered his name there. I thought about Kyle Shanahan over there in San Francisco, but they consistently did this. But you know what? I went with you, Jacksonville, Doug Peterson. But I'm going Dan Campbell in Detroit. I'm going the dark horse sleeper, Dan Campbell. Listen, Detroit started off 7-1, or 1-7. I'm sorry, 1-7, and the entire world was starting to think, is Dan Campbell going to be the first coach fired? The difference is that Detroit never quit on him. They played tough games. They just came out on the losing end at the start of the season, and the fact that he was able to turn around that team and get them to finish 9-8 on the year. We're competing for a playoff spot late in the season. You take a look at what they did at the very end of the year. The Detroit Lions had no business really playing tough that late season game in Green Bay to keep the Packers out of the playoffs. And they came to Green Bay and played a hell of a game and wound up keeping Detroit out of the playoffs. A coach goes further to me sometimes than just a basic win-loss record. It goes to, did the team substantially improve under that coach? Did that team have a reason to call it quits and then winds up, playing for each other, playing for that coach? And I really think Dan Campbell did that for the Detroit Lions. A lot of people made fun of him throughout the year with his press conferences and doesn't believe in analytics, and he is a man's man coach and a football guy. And yeah, he's a guy who's going to headbutt you with a helmet on. He's a tough son of a gun, but I would give him as my coach of the year, Dan Campbell.
You know something? I think this this is me, but I think this year was probably, as a collective, some of the best coaching from a head coaching position that we've seen across the NFL. You see what Pete Carroll did in Seattle, which no one expected it, phenomenal. What you saw with Dan Campbell there in Detroit, what you saw with Saleh in with the Jets, what you saw with down in Miami, what you even saw with the Falcons and the Saints and the Panthers. Their teams were horrible, but either it was Steve Wilkes, who came in as the interim, or the head coach there of the Falcons, kept them playing, kept it competitive. Um, what you saw with just teams across the board that were they were stories. Mike Tomlin, the team was terrible, had a rough start. He still ended up finding a way to win 500. He's never had a non-losing season ever, and that team fought all the way back. Just the coaching mentality, keeping the guys to buy in and play the whole seasons out, and show improvement from the very slow start to a great finish. There's just a lot of different guys who could have gone, and then you also have, in Buffalo and Cincinnati, where I guess they get head coaching nods for being leaders of men in a very tense and unusual situation there toward the end of the year. So coaching on across the board for the most part at a very high level this year, for everyone.
All right, Fresh. Let's go to the games this weekend here. We'll start on the NFC side this time, and we got the San Francisco 49ers traveling to Philadelphia, city of brotherly love here. Over-under is set at 46 points in this game. Eagles are a 2.5-point favorite in this game. This is pretty much a pick-em game with home field advantage taken into the equation. Fresh, either one of these teams make the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be much must-watch TV really coming out of the NFC side. I think that people are really going to like and kind of lean in towards the NFC side. If you're a casual fan and you don't have a team you're rooting for, I have a feeling people are going to be more likely to pick the NFC winner instead of the AFC winner. What say you?
I mean, these two teams, we've kind of the past 2 weeks we've had it for hey, who's your NFC team, who's your AFC team? First week I said the 49ers, and last week I said the Eagles. These two teams are very gritty. They embody their franchise's history, if you will. The 49ers have always been a very gritty team. The Eagles have always been a gritty team built like Philadelphia, built tough. These coaches have just grab the attention of their teams and keep them driving forward. This is the plan. This is how we're going to get done. The 49ers know we don't need the 6'4" flashy receiver or the big-time quarterback. We have an offensive line. We got guys who can be playmakers, whether it's running the football or catching it out of the backfield. We have George Kittle, who he's just a fun dude who can make plays in the critical situations. And we have a defense that is going to beat the trash out of you, and they're going to play hard. Yeah, when they beat the Cowboys, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't the most world beating. They put up 40 points, but that defense showed up. They shut down Dak. They forced the turnovers. They put the pressure on the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy to make decisions, and they ended up failing. They did enough. Do I want that? Could the offense have scored more? Yeah, but the Cowboys, they don't have a crap defense. They have a good defense too. So they played very tough. They won the football game in a physical mentality. You look at the Eagles. All season long, it's been this team is blowing people away left and right, blah, blah, blah. And then the Warriors came in. Well, Hurts is injured. How are they going to feel? They've had the number one seed forever. Where are they going to be at? Sirianni comes out there with this entire team, and they put the foot down on the Giants right off the bat, and they showed that they are a dominant team, and they've just been coasting and getting healthy on purpose. But they are going to be a reckless. They're going to be a team to be feared. They did it any way they wanted, and both these teams have their styles. They have their build. It's going to be very tough to pick which team is going to be the best team because I really like the toughness and the focus and the experience of the Niners, but I also love the youth and the energy that the Eagles have. Both teams have great defenses. Both teams have explosive offenses. But the one thing that comes down to it in the very end, Shanahan for Sirianni. Which head coach is going to be able to navigate this level here? This is not a divisional round. This is not a wild card matchup. How does Sirianni coach his team through this game and keep this team contained? I don't think Gardner Minshew's – if you had Gardner Minshew playing Brock Purdy, I would take Brock Purdy in a heartbeat. I just don't think Gardner Minshew, what we've seen, can really navigate that offense. I think the 49ers defense shows up a little bit more, and they are able to lock down some of that explosive behavior that Hurts and Brown and Devonta Smith and Goddard bring. I think the injuries, Lane Johnson, the offensive line there, dealing with some stuff. Is he able to, again, can he hold up in a full football game against a very physical 49er defense? I think Brock Purdy's built enough confidence. This is going to be a different environment going to Philly. That's not going to be an easy place for him to play. But I just trust Deebo Samuel, and I trust Kittle, and I trust Christian McCaffrey. Granted, I know he's dealing with the whole thing in the last game, and to being fully healthy, and Trent Williams, that offensive line for 49ers, to slow the game down, to make it an ugly mess. They don't have to score 40 points to beat Eagles. They're going to have to slow it down and be nasty, be physical, get mean, play on their terms. And that's where Purdy succeeds, because the game can be just, hey, calm down, take a deep breath. And that's why I think the 49ers will win this game 24-20. Purdy will have a late drive to lead the 49ers down there to win the football game. But it will not be a replay of a Hurts-Purdy college matchup, which was 42-41 between Oklahoma and Iowa State. We will not be seeing 83 points in this football game. But I think the Niners go on the road, the experienced head coach, a little more experience across the board, get it done, pull off the upset, and head themselves to Arizona with the W.
Fresh, this is an interesting pick, and I'm a little nervous about making this pick. But as I started off at the beginning of the show, I told you that it is Royal Rumble weekend. I'm going to take you all the way back to 1998 and the Royal Rumble. This is the Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels casket match. I don't know who you want to say is the Undertaker. I don't know who you want to say is the showstopper, Shawn Michaels. Actually, I'd say this. I think with the San Francisco defense, how they're playing right now, they're the Undertaker. And with the high-flying offense of the Philadelphia Eagles and all things that Jalen Hurts doing, they're probably Shawn Michaels in this game. In that match there, Fresh, Undertaker had it put away. And at the end, he winds up getting betrayed by his brother Kane, thrown into the casket, and then they light the casket on fire, setting up a huge, amazing match in WrestleMania 14. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way to watch it. But I really think that this is kind of the thing. San Francisco has gone so far with what they've done. And sooner or later, somebody's going to figure out Brock Purdy. He's an amazing story. We loved him last year when we were talking college football and Iowa State, and thought him and Matt Campbell, like, they messed up with expectations. When expectations got sky high for Iowa State, that's when he started to really struggle. This is a huge moment. And I know San Francisco, you played at home last week with Dallas. Going into the playoffs, going into Philadelphia is a hard environment. That is a tough, tough area to go into, just like a casket match. You're going up against the high-powered Eagles offense. I think Jalen Hurts is ready to show everyone, back up the Brinks truck here, boys. Like, let me show you what I'm worth in this game. This is the game that Jalen Hurts gets paid in. This is the game where you say, okay, listen, we need to start. This number starts at $200 million over 5 years because of this game. This is the time he gets you into a Super Bowl here. If San Francisco can get to Hurts 3, 4, I don't even want to go to 5 times. If they can get 3 or 4 sacks on him, if they can really spend the entire day of having Philadelphia behind the sticks and making it 2nd and long, 3rd and long in those situations, I think that Kyle Shanahan will figure out a way to get the offense going there. But at the end, give me Philadelphia in this. I just think Philadelphia has been too much for too many people. We're not talking about Tony Pollard breaking his leg and Ezekiel Elliott not being the same Ezekiel Elliott has been in years past, and Dak kind of showing Dak stuff at times. You take a look at San Francisco. This is a different team with Philadelphia. Now, I've been wrong in most of my picks this year in football, so take for what worth. Maybe if you're a San Francisco fan, you're happy I'm picking Philadelphia, but give me the Eagles in this game.
Do you just kind of wish we had like a weather, like, can we get like some snow or some like weathery, conditions like it was in Cincinnati and in Buffalo, or it was for even though the Jaguars game was kind of like a rainy, misty, cold, wet. We need some weather impacts to make this like a real NFC Championship game between these two really good football teams.
Oh, yeah, definitely for sure. All right, Fresh. Let's go to Kansas City. The Cincinnati Bengals upsetted the Buffalo Bills last weekend, and they will travel to Kansas City. This right now, it's a pick'em game Over-under is set at 47 points here. We're getting a nice little rematch from last year. I love it here. Talk to me, Bengals, Chiefs. What you got?
Well, I think first off, everyone in the world knows it's all about Mahomes' leg. But if you saw in the game, in that first drive when he got dinged up and him staying in, I was actually kind of mad about it. Like, the guy needs to get up. They need to check him out. Get him on the sideline. Test his leg because he did not look healthy. He did not look right. He was trying to, overcompensate. At halftime, they got him checked out, did the X-ray, and they probably gave him some, pain pills of some sort because he looked a little more comfortable in the second half. But he wasn't the same. He's not going to be running around on his own, making all the spectacular plays with his leg. He's going to be very contained in the pocket, which does minimize his effectiveness. And that's going to be a big play in this game because his gift is his mobility. His gift is his creativity where he can get on the edge, do the underhand throws, the sidearm throws, whatever. Not being contained in the pocket, even though he has great numbers in the pocket, that does limit his overall impact on the football game. So watching that and how that game plays out, but yes, he is going to be medicated to keep that leg tolerable for him to play on, but he's not going to be the same kind of guy. And that really comes down to how can Pacheco and how can Jerick McKinnon run the football? How much does Travis Kelce be involved? Obviously, getting 14 receptions versus the Jaguars, he was the focal point of the offense. But where they keep the down and distance and how they manage the offense to factor in that, that's going to be the biggest key. Henny obviously is a very valuable backup. I'm sure he's going to get all the reps of this week to be ready. But how will that play out? Because this Bengals defense has been playing fantastic lately, and they're going to get after the quarterback. They are not going to be shy to hit Patrick Mahomes and test that, a mobility early on. Mahomes is still a very great quarterback. They have players, but where will that impact come into play? The other side, there's a whole thing going on about going to Burrowhead instead of Arrowhead. Well, yes, the Bengals have beaten Mahomes and the Chiefs 3 times, but only once in Kansas City. So it's not like he doesn't own the stadium. He only played there once and beat them last year in a comeback effort in the title game, where we are here. So the whole Burrowhead thing, I don't really get yet because it's only been one game. It's not like they won all 3 there in Kansas City. But the confidence level that the Bengals have, where Burrow knows Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst at tight end, mixing, Samaje Perine, he knows he can just touch it out there. A guy wearing the orange helmet with the black, stripes is going to bring it down. They're going to make plays. He has that cool, calm effect with them, and the guys feed off of that. And it's contagious. The most impressive thing was how that offensive line last week, we had even talked about it, how where are they going to find the guys? They had 3 starters out. How are they going to protect them? They did an amazing job. Very quick, short passes. They did very short drops. They didn't have the 6, 7, 8, step drops. It was 2, boom, out. How is Kansas City going to offset that this week? Are they going to find a little more quick blitz? Are they going to play more zone coverage and sort of let him sit back there and have him sit back for a while and let the initial 3 or 4 get home just due to coverage sacks? They're going to see a lot more twists coming that way because they've already gotten a look at what the Bengals did to the Buffalo Bills. Another reason why they were so successful is they got after the Bills early. They put a shock and awe mentality on them. They had them caught. I think the Bills thought the game would be a slow play out. We'll use the weather to our advantage. And eventually, because we have enough energy, enough stamina, and a reason to play for DeMar Hamlin in the building, we'll get the win late. The Bengals took all that hope, all that momentum right away in those first 2 drives. Boom, boom, it's 14-0. And depending on who you ask, it should have been maybe 21-3 or 21-0 with the Jamar Chase touchdown that was overruled into an incomplete pass. It comes down to momentum and not getting too out front of yourself. You look at what the Jaguars did. They were there early. They got a 10-point deficit. They fought back, and they had 2 turnovers late that killed their comeback. If the Bengals can stay on stride, it's not a problem. They have the experience. They've done this before. It's just, can they do it the 4th time? They've beaten the Chiefs 3 times now. Did the Chiefs finally figure them out at home with the extra confidence, playing for Mahomes? The whole team probably stepping up their game. I'm going to actually take the Chiefs in this football game. I think the whole team is going to raise up their play level because their quarterback is dinged up. It's kind of like now, yeah, he's healthy. We can play maybe a little our B game and he'll be successful. With him down, I think they all elevate up and they find a way to squeak it out and get the Chiefs to the Super Bowl for a Chiefs-Niners rematch like we had in Miami a couple of years ago. I think that's what they're going to see. The whole team just step up and they're going to overcome the Bengals this time and move forward to another Super Bowl bid for Kansas City.
Yeah, they definitely put this game at 6:30 for a reason. This is the primetime game. There's going to be eyeballs galore on this game. Fresh, you know what I'm going to say. Let's go back in time to that 1998 Royal Rumble here. The final two men in the Royal Rumble, you know who it was? Well,
Mm-mm.
obviously you don't because you don't watch pro wrestling like I do. But it was Stone Cold Steve Austin
I do
and
know
The
who that
Rock.
is. I
And The
do know
Rock.
who that is.
So The Rock and Stone Cold wound up being the two biggest stars in professional wrestling for the next probably decade. And they're two iconic names. Everyone knows who they are. And that's what Burrows versus Mahomes is. This is Rock and Austin here. So if you are in the comments section here, if you think that the Chiefs are going to win, give me a hell yeah. If you think that Burrow and the Bengals are going to win, you better know you're rolling shut your mouth. So I'm going to tell you right here, this is Rock Austin. Now, the two things that are the difference maker in my end, and you saw it with Cincinnati against Buffalo here, is they got Joe Mixon going. And if Joe Mixon can kind of continue to lead that rushing attack where it's just not, hey, Joe, we're going to need you to throw the ball 40 times in a game. We're actually going to be able to have the other Joe run the ball and kind of move the chains a little bit, take the pressure off the passing game there. Jamar Chase is a matchup nightmare, just like Travis Kelce is. The two of them, it's going to be who can put the pressure on the defense as well in the passing game from that perspective. I love that this is for the second straight year. This is coming down to these two. I also love the fact that people are starting to doubt Kansas City, but at the same time too, I think a lot of people are saying, well, Joe Burrow and their win last year was a fluke win, and it really shouldn't have happened last year. And fresh again, like I said, we're taking a look at all of these things. Kansas City wasn't the same after Mahomes got hurt. Now they still won the football game. They have a lot of weapons now. Mahomes doesn't have to just rely on himself. And Travis Kelce played a hell of a game last week. A hell of a game. But again, like I said, 98 Royal Rumble won by Stone Cold Steve Austin and winds up going to WrestleMania, winning his first ever WWF championship. In 1997, Fresh, who won the Royal Rumble?
I'm gonna say The Rock.
No, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. He won the second 2 years in a row. Now, I said that Kansas City is Stone Cold, but I'm going to flip this here. I'm going to say Cincinnati does it again. Everyone's doubting them and saying, well, you can't do it a fourth time. And Cincinnati's putting up a lot of talk there. I love this. I think the Mahomes injury, a high ankle sprain, those don't heal quickly. Anyone who's had a high ankle sprain, I don't know how these athletes play with them. They're brutal, but they have better medical treatment than 98% of us. So I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way. But give me Cincinnati. I'm going to take Cincinnati in what is going to perceive as an upset. And I'm going to say this here, Fresh, because our next piece is every game, every week we've talked about the NFL playoffs. We have predicted our Super Bowl. I'm going to jump in right now. I am going to say it's going to be Cincinnati versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Cincinnati Bengals win their first NFL championship. I love it.
I mean, if they get there, I would at that point you've already been through the whole entire experience. You kind of know what you're doing, and it would be the odds would be in their favor. But right now, if Joe and the Bengals go, where's that place Joe Burrow? Even just going back to back Super Bowls, not even have to win. If you go back to back Super Bowls, where does that put Joe in the echelon of historic quarterbacks?
1, 2 right now. He's in the top 2 or 3. He's got to win one for me to really put him up there in that level of like the all time greats. He's got to have the win to get into the all time area. He's probably the most exciting young quarterback we've had since Mahomes. And again, they're not that far apart, which is kind of crazy to say. But again, you take a look at these things, Fresh, and how many, take a look at some of the exciting quarterbacks we had. Like, look at Andrew Luck's first couple years. It was lighting the league on fire, and then never got that win, so he'll never be talked about in that same level. Until he gets that ring. Mahomes has already got the ring, so he's always going to be talked about as a step ahead of Burrow. But he's only got one, and as we've talked before, Rodgers unfortunately only has one, and Rodgers has played like one of the best, probably maybe the best quarterback in the NFL for the last 5-6 years, maybe. And you say this with Mahomes, he's got the Super Bowl ring. Burrow needs the ring to have that conversation. But I mean, exciting.
Yeah, he's showing that he has the moxie to get, to even be in that upper echelon and really historically be the best quarterbacks. It's funny how, hear people say, well, wins aren't a quarterback stat. Wins are a team, win losses in a quarterback stat. But then we start counting how many Super Bowl rings does that quarterback have. So it's finding that happy medium between wins and losses and then titles. Like titles mean more important than overall wins because that championship means you actually accomplished something. You look at the Rams. You had one great year and then you completely bottomed out. Championships matter over overall wins and losses. And if you show up when we show up when it counts in the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fascinating weekend here. Saturday night, watch the Royal Rumble. I know Fresh won't. I will probably. I'll throw it on just for old time's sake. It's the only real time I watch pro wrestling. And then Sunday, we got the football games. I love it. Oh, hell yeah.
It's that time of year where football is limited. We're down to 3 games technically left, but college basketball is just heating up. This entire weekend, especially Saturday, is going to be loaded with college basketball from noon to midnight. So if you don't want to watch the wrestling, turn on college basketball. There's a lot of great matchups.
Yeah. But man, how can you mess up with an 30-man over the top battle royal?
I mean, don't get highlights. You can watch on your phone. I'm watching Kentucky, Kansas go at it and play.
Yeah, but when the guys come back that are the legends and the music hits, there's nothing like it when you're doing that and you hear the crowd counting down 5, 4, 3, and then all of a sudden that music hits and they pop and there's nothing like it there, Fresh. It's an electrifying environment. It's an amazing thing. Although I do love college basketball, don't get me wrong. I will always love me some college basketball. So I can't wait, though. When we get to that part, we're getting to the college basketball tournament. Guys, make sure you're following us along on Twitter. We are going to be doing our second annual hostile takeover for our Twitter fans. So if you haven't followed us on Twitter, make sure you do. Maybe you can be our 20,000th follower. 20,000 people are about ready to follow our account. We're like, I don't know, 90 some away. So by the time, these games are played,
Spread the
we'll be
word,
over
spread the wealth.
20,000. Yeah, it's going to be exciting times here. Hostile takeover. We're going to move to college basketball here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe do a couple of like little fun episodes that Fresh and I have been talking about. Make sure you go into spinablesports.com. Spinablesports.com. Remember, the Irrational Podcast is part of Spinable Sports. Special thank you to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. He's behind the scenes putting up with all of this stuff. He's going to be editing all of the pro wrestling talk, I'm sure, from me today. But special thanks to him. Like, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast from. Leave us that 5-star review because we're those 5-star prospects. If you haven't subscribed to the Spinnable Sports YouTube channel, you get to watch this. I was considering grabbing a couple of beers out of my fridge there and slamming them over my head and trying to pour them out just like Stone Cold. But that wasn't going to happen today. I got carpeting where I'm at there. I didn't want to have to clean the carpet afterwards. But like, subscribe to our Spinnable Sports channel. Hit that notification bell so every single time we drop a new episode, you get notified. Check us out on the YouTube. Fresh, that's it for me. I got nothing else.
We keep seeing the subscription numbers going up and up and up every time we drop a new video. So keep joining the party and growing the brand and enjoying our content and also interact with us whenever you possibly can. But on that note, enjoy a great sports weekend. Enjoy the championship games, and we'll get ready to bring the Super Bowl here sooner than later. With that, bye, y'all.
And that's the bottom line, because Hap said so.